Hi guys, it's pissing rain earlier and now look at it. Picturesque. Lovely weather now, but will it last? We don't know. Look at those clouds. It's really nice. Out with this lad. Got a wave. Yeah, it's lovely. Like, don't look at the clouds. Reminds me of Toy Story. Well, oh boy. This one I didn't know whether I'd make it as on the laptop, or if I'd go out and just open the clouds with him. Didn't know whether I'd make it on the laptop where I had, like my little Venn diagram or whatever, but I couldn't really find anything with the Venn diagram or, solid information on this. Well, I'll make a video on my own. I heard some people talking about it. Mark Hutton, I think the fella's name is. He makes a good video on it. I'm speaking to my own friends and speaking to people I know who are on the spectrum, who are autistic. It's a subject of conflict, right? So it's an awkward one, I know. Like, I looked at it and I thought, are people with autism more conflict avoidant? Is that a thing? Sorry guys, a fly went into my mouth. Had to just spit it out there. Oh, nasty. Literally hit the back of the windpipe. Oh, right down the throat. Why would you want to fly there? Anyway. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting subject because a lot of people make out as if, autistic kids are monsters and they're a nightmare to deal with. They're very violent. And like, certainly, yeah, that can be the case at times. Yeah, like, certainly it can be the case where, you've got a kid who's violent and having a meltdown. And I don't think you can explain that to someone who doesn't have autism, because you just see a kid who's being aggressive and, not doing what they're told. Instead of playing with toys, they throw them. But I made a video saying like how people call them monsters, and it's just being so overwhelmed. And until you learn to deal with that and learn social norms, as they're deemed nowadays, you will be like that. But I can tell you there's a lot of feelings of guilt and shame that I have about that now that I'm normal. So that really pisses me off hearing that. Like, I understand if you're a caregiver or a parent, a sibling, like the sibling doesn't know what's going on, in fairness. In fairness as well, parents don't a lot of the time. So I do definitely sympathise, 100%. And I think it's not okay for you to treat your family like shit, not at all, and I've spoken about that. And if they're trying their damnedest to help you out and, they're trying to make life easier for you, you owe it to them to appreciate what they're going through. And you see a lot of entitled autistic kids and they're thinking, they celebrate when they speak or something, and it really annoys me. There was this one kid in my class who hasn't seemed to have to change an awful lot at all. He was accepted for who he was, and I wasn't. I had to change everything about myself to appease everybody else. Was I violent? Yes I was, but come on, boy. I was only violent because other people kept giving me shit, and because the world around me was so overwhelming. Everybody bumping into you, making noise all the time, sensations, things that I hated, clothes, tastes, being forced to do things I didn't want to do. I just wanted to be left alone, sit there and be left alone. That's literally it. Tell me how that's confrontational. Good boy, and this one, he's just pondering the meaning of life. That's what I like doing as well, yeah. Carry on or we go back? What do you think? Wonder what he's gonna decide. What do you think? Will we stay or will we go? You're a good boy, ain't you? And go back? Or we go forward? You can't decide. We'll go back. Good lad. But yeah, you know, the thing is, you have to go to school, you have to wipe your own arse, you have to obviously learn. But I was always quite a pleasant and happy kid until my dad left, which was very traumatic, and was always stressed, there was always tension, there was always anxiety in the house. There was always people trying to make me do things I didn't want to fucking do. There was always kids giving me shit and annoying me. And when my dad left, I did become different, you know, I started acting out, and I think that's pretty normal. But I hate conflict, you know. Fucking hate it. I hate having to deal with situations where people are being arseholes and I have to go out and, you know, the annoying part is you're not allowed to lash out and be rude to people, but it seems like they're allowed to be rude to you and you've got to just tolerate it. And then when you actually make an effort to go into the workplace, you know, you have to be mannerly, please sir, no sir, and all this shit. And there are certain jobs I've done, like where I've been a steward or, you know, done mild security work or whatever, and you have to be assertive, but not too assertive, and all these fucking rules. Like, my brother will say, Alf, do you want to cross over or not? You gotta trip me up. Can't walk in the middle of the road though. Too much decisions, that's the thing. Yeah, too many freedoms. Yeah, good boy. You know, there's all these unwritten rules where, oh, you were too rude, or, you know, you didn't, or, you know, you're not ballsy enough, you've no balls, you didn't stand up for yourself. Or, oh, you were over the top, you were way out of line. What the fuck is it then? You know? You can be very black and white, you know, but it's almost like you need a free pass to go, is this the norm? Is this what I'm allowed to do? I often have to ask for permission. What's the accepted response in this situation? What would everybody else deem acceptable? You know what I mean? That's a weird one, it's hard to explain it, but it's like, what will everybody else deem as an acceptable response if I go and say something, you know? What would they consider me to be? Sorry, I'll say that again. It's a hard one, I know. What would be considered me getting walked all over, and what would be considered me overreacting? Does that make sense? So, you know, if someone bumps into your car door, if you scream and shout at them, I think that's a bit of an overreaction. If you do nothing, are you getting walked all over? And then you have to consider if it's a little old lady who, you know, always gets a free pass, don't they? But it's like, do they know what they've done? Should you hold them accountable? Like, I remember before my mum gave out to me for saying something, she said, leave it, just leave it. I was like, okay. And I was afraid to say anything in case it upset her. You know, my brother avoids conflict a lot, really does. He's often the one who's had to tell me to cop the fuck on if I'm drunk and getting into a situation, but I would class myself as conflict avoidant by nature. But I'm afraid that my family will just let people walk all over them, so I try and, you know, say something on their behalf. And I've gotten quite good at it, you know, quite diplomatic. I didn't get very good training on it, you know. And like I said before, my dad went mental at me for telling someone not to kick my seat, which I think is perfectly reasonable, you know. Sorry, you're kicking my seat, could you please stop doing that? Pretty reasonable. But he didn't want to deal with confrontation, so he said, oh, now I have to fucking deal with this, good job. And you're like, well, why should I tolerate this? Don't want someone kicking my seat. So my mum and dad were very bad at dealing with conflict. Terrible at it. They just kind of, they'd rather blame me and my brother than have to deal with a confrontational situation. And then you think you're the problem. And then you kind of grow up thinking, oh, I'm not allowed I was 10 before, 10 or 11, and our dog, we let him out the front and he ran around, and sometimes he might shit in someone's garden, and the neighbour came over and was giving out to me like I was an adult and all, and my mum just sat there and did nothing about it, and then afterwards admitted she should have done something. I was like, too little too late. You're kind of like, well, yeah, you should have, but why didn't you? Then she said she was hungover or something, and that's why she started making excuses. And I'm thinking, there is no excuse, you should have gone out for me. All these situations, like, they add up. Good boy. There he is. Good lad. There you go. Good boy. So yeah, I think it depends on your parents as well, Some people are so entitled and full of their own self-importance. Hello. Don't call over for your friend? Yeah, call over for bear. Some people are only too happy to go and, they enjoy conflict, they enjoy putting people down, and I wouldn't say they're ballsy, I'd say they're arrogant, and they think that they're entitled to better treatment than everyone else. As I say, I've worked in the service industry, so I know I've dealt with some wank bag customers. Most obnoxious pricks you can think of, who think they're entitled to better care and treatment. And you know what the annoying part is? A lot of times they get it. Whereas I'd be like, no, I'm not serving you better because you're being a rude, obnoxious prick. In fact, the opposite. There was a nice lady that I got on well with, and I've given this example way back, but she never complained, and a couple of times people got her order wrong, and I'd chat to her and ask her how she was. I sat down for my lunch, she sat down next to me, and when I finished my lunch she still hadn't been served. So I said, sorry, you've been waiting ages, what was your order? Do you want me to go up and ask? She was like, oh, you wouldn't mind, would you? And I was like, no problem. As I said, she never complained, so I was like, I'm going to ask, because I was like, this isn't on. They're quick enough to serve customers who bitch and moan and make a scene, and then they apologise. But if a customer didn't complain, they just let them sit there, and I thought, that's not on, And when I asked, I was like, is that order done? There was a new girl on, she didn't answer me, so I said, is that order done? And that's when I got accused of being a bully, because I kept asking if the order was done. Oh, bullshit, I got told to calm down, that I was being threatening and abusive. I was like, fuck off. I had a girl come in before as well who was, I would say she was on the spectrum, and she was quite timid and passive, and she spoke very low, and like I used to do that when I was younger, so I thought that's why. And some fella was very rude and butting ahead of her, and I was like, hold on a second please, I'm serving this lady. I was like, sorry, what was your order? And then eventually I got it, and I was patient, she wasn't rude, she was just quiet and shy and timid, as I say, because there was another lad who came in and I knew he had autism because he told me, and we were chatting away about that. Always very polite, he kind of repeated himself, so he'd say, a skinny latte, takeaway please. I could relate to all of it. Echolalia. But he was perfectly pleasant, he was never rude, in fact overly polite. So this notion that we're all rude, we're all ignorant, we're aggressive, I think I've seen a lot of autistic people getting abused because they're afraid of conflict, and I can completely relate, because what I experience when someone's screaming at me is anger, but then I've been told I'm not allowed to hit them, so then that gets internalised, so I start to tense up and freeze. It's a primitive response. I even start thinking back to when I was a kid, and when my mum and my dad were angry at me, and I start to freeze up, and I can't do anything if it's words, so I look like a bit of a fool. It's kind of a funny one, because if someone hits me, then I switch. It's like, oh, now I'm allowed to attack them. And I'm not bigging myself up or anything, but it doesn't matter the size of the person who hits me. I'm a big fella, but in games of rugby that I played, if anyone hit me, I would just start throwing and swinging. Sometimes there was no rhyme nor reason to it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with hitting someone if they hit you. Of course not. Sometimes even when I'm out walking now, like that, a car drives by, I get a sudden fear that someone will scream something out the window at me, because that used to happen all the time when I was a kid, and I would kind of be like, okay. My brother said that fully grown adults used to scream, "Oh, you fat cunt," you're like, really? To a child? Fucking pathetic. And I felt really bad for him, because he opened up and he said it happened all the time. And that's where I feel guilt, because it's kind of hard, you don't know what to do, because you're told, don't do anything. Then it's like, I have to do something, but I'm afraid of conflict. Sometimes I want to play the peacemaker, and if someone gets really aggressive with me, I'll be kind of taken aback for a moment. And then I'll be like, get out of my fucking face now, I'll start to get really angry, if they start squaring up to me and trying to intimidate me. If it's with a friend and I'm not sure about that friend, I might try and appease, the situation, go, right, let's all calm down a minute, because I know that fella can't fight, or whatever. So I'm pretty good at weighing up the situation, and people will say, oh, you should just go in there and start throwing digs, look at you. So I'm like, yeah, but the fellow I'm with can't defend himself, so I want to make sure he's alright. And if I don't trust the fellow I'm with to back me up, I know I'll be left to get the shit kicked out of me. So this wonderful neurodivergent brain of ours thinks of 1,000,001 different scenarios all at once, and it's overwhelming. So then your system goes into shutdown. That's what I firmly believe it is. If you've got something like ADHD maybe as well, you might be impulsive, but your mind races a lot. So yeah, there's a lot going on at once, you know what I mean? Spoke to 3 different friends. All of them said they would try and avoid conflict where possible. One friend, like, he's in the army, so he's more inclined to know what to do, but he would, when I've seen him out and about, he's normally quite pleasant and friendly and overly mannerly. I'd say he could handle himself, I trust him to have my back, and I'd have his, if any shit ever hit the fan, I would trust him to have my back, and I'd have his, which is more than I can say for a lot of friends I've had, let me tell you. Not friends at all, really, but I would say we're more vulnerable. I wouldn't say we're, autistic kids who've never had to go out into the real world and do anything for themselves, they might come across as very entitled, because I asked my brother before, what does he think of when he thinks of autism, and he just started going, it's not accurate. These Rain Man, Sheldon Cooper types that everybody's wiped their arse from. So they're told they're a genius, they always get their own way, and they expect things to be done the way they want them to be done. And I'm like, people are willing to make accommodations now. I don't have that many that I need them to make, but if I asked them, they'd be more than willing in most situations to accommodate me, which is great, it is. Yeah, so just one second. There was a situation like I spoke about before, with the car door, and I realised how many things I don't react to when my mum is around, because I know she doesn't like confrontation and she gets angry at me, so she doesn't want me saying anything, and she gets angry with me if I do. So I don't know, she makes me very confused, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do in any situation. Dan, just shut up, and then I'm like, I actually get something done when I just go, fuck it, I'm doing it, and I do it, and it gets done, She just gets so frustrated and lets her emotions get the better of her a lot, whereas I've been able to bring myself down, calm down, and think of it logically, and deal with the situation in quite a respectful way, I would say. What was I thinking? So the car door situation, I think it's a very fucking ignorant thing to bump into someone's car door and not say, oh, sorry. And if someone says, oh, sorry, like, it has happened before, and I stared at someone and they were like, oh, sorry, I was like, alright, yeah, no bother. Or I've screamed out the window, what the fuck are you doing? And that was a bit of an overreaction. And then there's been times where it's been an older person and be like, oh, alright, yeah, just bite your tongue, leave it, it's not worth it. Did they dent the car? No, so just you know, but I kind of like, oh, I should have said something, I should have fucking, that was ignorant, they shouldn't get away with that. Then more recently, an older man parked in a spot that wasn't a parking spot to begin with, you know, just came up next to us. People always park on top of you. Do you ever notice that? When you when there's plenty of other spaces, they always seem to park next to me. I don't know why, but maybe I've got too friendly a face. But this fella got out of the car, kicked it open, and it hit off the door. And he didn't apologise, he didn't say anything. And I said, sorry, will you watch the door? And he was like, oh, what? And I said, you're after just knocking your door into our door, will you be careful? And he was like, oh, where? And I was like, you just opened your door and you kicked it into our door, will you mind what you're doing? And he was completely oblivious that he just fucking hit our door. And I was like, can you be careful, please? So I didn't want to get tick with him, but I was kind of thinking, that's fucking ignorant just to do that and not say sorry. But I think I handled it well. Didn't scream at him, I said, can you mind the door, please? But kind of fear came over me, you know, and a sick feeling in my stomach for him. It was like, I doubt if I'm going to respond the appropriate way, you know, because people always tell you, oh, you know, you overreacted, you know, and I say, trust your own judgment. Trust it, you know, don't always think that you're wrong and that you have to listen to everyone else's opinion. People are great at giving opinions, you know, fuck them. A lot of times when I've just trusted my own instincts, I've done the right thing. And people are great in hindsight at saying, oh, you know, you should have done this, so fuck off. What was the outcome? We're fine, aren't we? So, yeah. Then I gave another example, but I was in Galway with my brother, my auntie, and my 4 younger cousins. Me and my auntie went into the garage to get something. We parked up and I got what I needed. I was coming out of the shop and I saw some fella screaming at my brother, and he was apologising for something, you know, holding his hands up, and he's a big fella, you know, he was only 17 at the time though, but seemed like he was dealing with the situation pretty well. But the fella was roaring at him, so I thought, right, I got a little overwhelmed. Then I thought, he needs your help, take a deep breath. You might not want to deal with this situation, but he needs your help, take a deep breath. Get ready, compose yourself, you know, compose yourself and go out. That's a good tip. That really helped me, composing myself, taking a moment to scan the situation and then go out. So I went over to him and said, what's after happening here? And your man started screaming, oh, they're after bumping into the fucking car, you know, fucking ignorant. And I was like, where? There's nothing wrong with the car. He's like, they're after putting the fucking dent in the car, look. And I was like, there's no dent in the car, will you calm down? And he was like, how would you like it if I smashed up your fucking car? And I was like, you're not going to do that. Calm the fuck down, you're screaming at kids. And he said to me, you want to watch your attitude, son? And I went, my attitude? You're the one screaming at, you know, young children. And I want to watch my attitude. His wife just kept apologising, and I was like, well, not your fault, but pick a better husband next time. My auntie came out only shortly after the whole thing had calmed down, and I was kind of like, she was at the tail. Did she see the situation and think I'd rather not deal with it? Don't know. But her and my mum, they complain a lot about situations, but they don't actually do anything about them, you know. Not great at dealing with conflict. And I kind of think I'm going to back my own judgment from now on, because there's a lot of situations I've dealt with pretty well, I will say. Give myself a pat on the back. No, but I paid over $1,000 to have my mum's car done up and repaired for an NCT, you know, which is like, the car gets examined to make sure that it's roadworthy, essentially, if you're not from Ireland. Anyone from Ireland will know what an NCT is. But the mechanic in charge was a fuckwit, like, at the highest order. Did a shite job. Stuff that hadn't been broken before kept breaking, you know. They'd burst the tyre and everything while doing the NCT in the place. It passed somehow, but I went in with my brother and I was like, I'm going to say it to them because I'm the one that's paid. I've got all the receipts here, I'm going to show them. And then my mum and my brother were like, no, you'll say it wrong, you'll be too aggressive, you'll rip. And I was like, no, I won't. What do you take me for? Like, I won't be. And I went in and I said, now we've paid for all these things to be done, they haven't been done. The tyre was burst on the last time they examined it, so we'd like that to be repaired, you know, free of charge, because we've paid for everything and you've damaged it. And I showed her receipts, I was like, that's all been paid for, you can check that right there. And then she was like, okay, no problem. I was like, thank you. And off we went. Everything got done. And I think I handled it pretty well. And I was fucking raging beforehand. I was like, we've paid a lot of money and the thing is just damaged, it's fucked, but I dealt with it, you know. And I'm not talking about confrontation when I've talked about situations that can get violent. I'm talking about, you know, just in everyday life when you have to deal with stuff. That kind of thing. Problem solving is something where you want to be calm as well. Take a moment, take a deep breath, compose yourself. If something happens immediately, it's easy to go mental, and I have before, but there's other times where I get overwhelmed, and then depending on who I'm with, I'm like, oh, they're going to get upset if I react a certain way, and or if you're in a situation that could turn violent, can I rely on these people to have my back if it does? And if the answer is no, maybe wait until the other person puts you in a situation where you can no longer be confrontational, you know. But I wouldn't say autistic people are confrontational. I'd say the opposite. I'd say we can sometimes lack the confidence to deal with stuff, you know, because we have a very right or wrong way type of approach. We also have a sense of justice, you know, so this is the right way, this is the appropriate way, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. Rules are easy to follow, and people break them, but then try and convince us that we're the ones in the wrong and manipulate and gaslight us. It's very easy to fall victim to that. So I want you to trust your own judgment. If something feels wrong, maybe it is. You know, back yourself. Don't be afraid to call out bullshit, you know. You shouldn't tolerate it. Why should your rights be trampled on because some dickhead's having a bad day? Fuck that. I've no sympathy for someone having a bad day. You know, plenty of people are willing to take out their anger on you when they're having a bad day, and I wouldn't be allowed to do it, so nor should they. And you shouldn't tolerate it either, you know. Back yourself, you know. And if someone's treating you unfairly and you can report it, you know. Don't be afraid. Don't have your rights trampled on, as they say. I wish you all well, guys. A very happy Sunday. I'll see you in the next one.